Okay, now for the final little bit about Plato's city. So we talked about how the noble lie would keep people content with the place that they end up in society based on their natural ability. Um, that's one important part of making the city run properly. But Plato also thought we could do more to make the city run properly. And part of what we could do is tamper with the guardian class a little bit. So it's not just that we want courageous, physical, warlike people there. I mean, those are the natural abilities that will get you into the guardian class. But we also need to really make sure we develop their courage. And so, what are some things that might make people less courageous? Plato thought that your property, right, is something that people are often really worried about, whether it's your physical property, such as a home and money and so on, but also the property you have, the emotional property you have in your family, in classic sort of nuclear family, your wife and kids, right, or your husband and kids. And so Plato thought that in order to really develop the courage among the guardian class, we have to do away with these worries about property. We can't have people worried about what's best for themselves, because what's best for themselves will just be to let other people do the fighting for them, right? So if everybody else goes to fight and I abandon the fight so I can spend time with my family, that would be better for me, right? If all I'm worried about are my personal possessions. So we need to develop their courage, and we do that by making sure the guardians share all of their property. So the guardians will share not only all of their physical property, so they'll all be responsible for the maintenance of the general living quarters and stuff like that, uh, but they'll also all share family, right? So what does that mean? How does that happen? Well, it means that children are sort of taken at birth, right? They have to be separated from the mother at birth. Otherwise, they'll know immediately, okay, that's my child, or that's my child, or that's my child, right? So they separate the child from the mother at birth, taken care of by other women in the society, right? And then all of the women and all of the men, right? The women have a more physical role in nursing in the early stages, but both the men and women in society are equally responsible for all of the children, right? So you don't have um, these little nuclear families each taking care of their children. There's just a group of children, and they're all taken care of by the group. And Plato thinks this is necessary for having a just society because the proper function for the guardians is to be courageous, and they can't be courageous if they own physical property or emotional property in terms of a spouse and children. Right? So we got to get rid of that. So that might sound a little strange to you. It's definitely a different conception than what we're used to, but it's not like anybody's no longer taken care of, right? Everybody's sort of treated equally. All the children have multiple people looking out for them at all times instead of just two. So, um, one other thing we should mention too is we need to, for at least for Plato, we need to make sure that society has enough of the people that we need, right? So imagine um, we need the best craftsmen, we need the best rulers, we need the best guardians. Right? How are we going to do that? Well, Plato believed in the practice of eugenics. And so, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, eugenics is this process of basically selective breeding, right? So you can try and match two people up in order to take advantage of their genetic makeup to breed the best people you can, right? So if you're looking to breed guardians, you'll take the most physical man, the most physical woman, put them together for breeding purposes, and hopefully the genetic roll of the dice ends up in giving us another guardian, right? Or an even better guardian than we've ever had before. If we need more rulers, we can mate the intellectual people in society, so on and so forth. So that's what he thought. He believed in this controversial topic of eugenics. Right? So it's controversial to us because some neo-Nazi propaganda currently talks about eliminating minority races by not allowing them to breed anymore, right? So if we sterilize minority races and only allow white people to breed, then eventually we'll just have an Earth where there are only white people, right? So those are some really controversial views, right, that people think are clearly bad. But eugenics, although it's a controversial term, doesn't always have to have that negative connotation, right? So Plato wasn't trying to use it for racist or cultural or sexist means. He was essentially just trying to breed the best people he could, regardless of sex or skin color or whatever it was. Right? He just wanted to breed the best guardians, the best rulers, the best craftsmen, so that the city could get as close as it can to embodying perfect justice. So, how are people going to accept that? So we've already heard the noble lie, which makes them accept their natural role in society. But now we need to get them on board with this process of eugenics, right? Where really the rulers are just picking out people and mating them to produce the best citizens. Well, Plato once again is going to lie to the citizens, right? So he wants the rulers to lie to the rest of the citizens about this. And how essentially they're just going to trick the guardians into this eugenic practice, right? So what's going to happen is the rulers will just say that all sexual relations are assigned at random, right? It's signed by lot. Essentially, they pick a name out of this hat for a male, they pick a name out of this hat for a female, and then they say, okay, you two can mate. Because remember, you're not allowed to have a spouse in the guardian class. Right? So you're not allowed to have this like husband or wife relation going on. So all of your sexual relations have to be disconnected in this way. So the rulers will lie to the guardians and say that it's all assigned at random. But really what's going on behind the scenes, the rulers are picking out who they want to breed. Okay, so I think that's the final thing we really need to mention about the guardian class, right? So the guardian class plays a really important role, and they have to protect the city, help it expand, and they have to be the type of people who are selfless and courageous. And so Plato realized that if we just take your traditional nuclear family, then people won't be as courageous or selfless as they could be. By eliminating the family, eliminating property, and using this lie about sexual relations, you're able to foster this sense of community among all of the guardians. And when people are more worried about the community than their self, it fosters those good virtues of courage, right, that guardians need to do their job most effectively. Remember, when you do your job most effectively, you're playing your natural part as well as you can, and you're helping justice. Okay, so I think that's all we need to say about Plato's Republic. Make sure you email me if you have any questions. There's a lot of material this week, a lot of different material, right? So just as a quick summary, remember, Plato disliked democracy and wanted to replace it with aristocracy, or rule by expertise. And you get this rule by expertise when you find those who have the natural ability for ruling, who have the natural ability for intellectual endeavors and gaining knowledge of the forms. And then all of the other roles in society have to play their part, and those are all natural parts. They're not parts that people get to choose. But yeah, by putting all of these practices in place, Plato thinks he secured the best functioning society because it fits with what's naturally best. It will embody all the virtues and will therefore be the just city, right? Will maximize justice in this city. And that's what we should really be going for, is a just society, not just one that's efficient, right? So secured justice. Good job. And that's it for the week. Thanks, everyone.